Welcome to this explainer. All right, let's just dive right into one of the most fascinating and frankly high-stakes economic stories unfolding in the world right now. Think about it. When you check the tag on your favorite t-shirt or a pair of jeans, there's a really high chance it says Made in Bangladesh. But the story behind that little label, well, it's about to change dramatically. Today, we're unpacking the massive geopolitical and economic stakes of Bangladesh's ready-made garment industry, usually just called RMG. We're going to walk through the RMG 2035 Survival Blueprint, which is basically a massive roadmap detailing exactly how this industrial giant plans to navigate a super volatile global future. To really understand why this matters, you have to grasp the sheer mind-boggling scale of what we're talking about here. Just let this number sink in. 84.5%. That is the percentage of the nation's total foreign exchange earnings generated entirely by the apparel industry. And on top of that, it contributes over 10% to the entire national GDP. This isn't just an important sector, it is literally the definitive economic engine of Bangladesh. We're talking about millions of livelihoods and the macroeconomic stability of an entire nation hanging right in the balance. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover 1. The industry at a crossroads. 2. Internal strengths and weaknesses. 3. External opportunities and threats. 4. Pillars of a just transition. And finally, 5. The RMG 2035 Survival Blueprint itself. Part 1. The industry at a crossroads. Right now, as the world's second-largest apparel exporter, Bangladesh is navigating what experts call a triple transition: economic, political, and environmental. It's a wildly delicate balancing act. For decades, their formula was pretty straightforward: produce an enormous amount of basic garments using highly productive, labor-intensive methods. Simple, right? But that old formula is now forcefully colliding with reality. They desperately need technological upgrading and a structured, just transition. The industry is being pushed rapidly toward automated Industry 4.0 standards, all while trying to manage a deeply destabilized trade environment with the US and the EU. The urgency of this whole situation is captured perfectly by this alarming metric. In fiscal year 24, the industry recorded a shocking 5.22% year-on-year export decline. Now, for an industry built on perpetual high-volume growth, a drop like this is a blaring siren. It points to some severe systemic vulnerabilities. Western consumer demand is softening, mostly because of inflation and shifting post-pandemic buying habits. And in response, global anchor brands are heavily squeezing margins. The old way of doing things, it's simply no longer enough to guarantee growth. Section 2. Internal strengths and weaknesses. Let's do a little SWOT analysis. To chart a survival blueprint, we first have to do a thorough internal audit to figure out exactly what makes this industry so powerful in the first place. And these internal competitive moats are deeply layered. It's really no longer just a story of cheap labor. It's about a highly integrated ecosystem. Under the market and economy umbrella, there is true foreign exchange leadership anchoring the national currency. But the real magic? That happens within supply chain and operations. They have this incredibly robust subcontracting network of over 1,100 small and medium enterprises. This creates a resilient supply chain that can just absorb massive, sudden orders from global buyers. When you combine that with innovation and technology elements, like having 100% digital payment integration through mobile financial services for millions of workers, you start to see an industry that is surprisingly agile. Let's unpack a few more vital strengths, because this is fascinating. Here is a massive piece of irony. While Western consumers often associate fast fashion with pollution, Bangladesh is actually operating as a green giant. They house 61 of the world's top 100 LEED-certified green factories. That is a huge competitive edge as global brands aggressively push for sustainability. Plus, there is an incredible 93% psychological readiness among operators to adapt to automation. The workers literally want to learn the new tech. Add to that superior labor productivity, generating about $5.90 an hour compared to regional peers like Cambodia at just $3, and a highly mature safety compliance legacy. Thanks to agreements like the Accord and Alliance, it's actually one of the safest apparel sectors in the world today. But we gotta flip the script here and look at the structural bottlenecks dragging the industry down from the inside. These internal weaknesses are severe, creating massive friction points that lead directly to margin compression. In terms of management and culture, there's serious friction. We're seeing deep-seated managerial resistance to adopting new data-driven methods. A lot of folks are relying on legacy top-down approaches that just kill efficiency.
Operational friction is equally massive, especially for those smaller factories. They simply lack the capital to upgrade their systems. This leads to something called isolated automation, which basically means advanced tech is only used in isolated pockets, like spinning and dyeing, rather than smoothly integrated across the whole factory floor. The big Tier 1 factories can afford it, but the broader ecosystem is left struggling with outdated, inefficient processes.
The crucial point is really driven home by this staggering comparison. Bangladesh has a tech intensity rating of just 1.9. Compare that to China's highly advanced 63.7 rating. It's night and day. This massive disparity fuels a crippling 60% skill gap across technical roles. Because workers lack digital literacy, often unable to even read the English language dashboards on these complex new machines, factories develop a debilitating dependence on expensive foreign experts just to maintain and repair their own equipment. Section 3. External opportunities and threats.
Okay, we've looked inside the factories. Now let's zoom out to the macroeconomic forces reshaping the global landscape. There are massive strategic avenues for pivoting to high-value manufacturing, and the biggest catalyst is the impending LDC graduation in November 2026. So what does that actually mean? Right now, as a least developed country, Bangladesh enjoys certain automatic, zero-tariff trade privileges in major markets. It's a developmental safety net. But when they graduate, those safety nets disappear. It's effectively a promotion out of developmental trade breaks, meaning they suddenly have to compete on the global stage purely on high-value technology, impeccable quality, and efficiency. Industrial upgrading is no longer just a nice idea, it's an absolute mandate. And honestly, successfully executing these opportunities could completely neutralize their current internal weaknesses.
Let's zero in on some of those lucrative opportunities. First is a total game changer. The 2026 U.S. trade deal offers a conditional zero-tariff pathway if the apparel utilizes U.S. origin cotton or man-made fibers. Second, a pivot to a waste-to-wire circular economy. EU markets are demanding recycled materials, and monetizing textile waste can recover millions. There's also this massive opportunity to upskill female workers into high-value CAD roles. Finally, deploying AI-driven software to optimize fabric usage cuts down material waste drastically. Remember that green giant concept? This AI optimization doesn't just help the planet. It directly repairs those squeezed profit margins we talked about earlier. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The external environment is incredibly hostile right now. The industry is facing volatile transatlantic trade wars, which could lead to unpredictable retaliatory tariffs. We're also seeing the rise of domestic yarn protectionism, where local import taxes could artificially inflate raw material costs by 10%. But most concerning is the competition and market landscape. Regional rivals like Vietnam and India aren't just standing still. They are aggressively deploying advanced bots. Think about how terrifying that is for a labor-reliant economy. Competitors can simply purchase robots that cut and sew faster, with fewer errors, and ultimately cheaper than human hands. This directly attacks the historical labor cost edge that the entire Bangladeshi RMG sector was built upon. And out of all those threats, this is the one we really need to pause on: 2.7 million. That is the incredibly sobering projection of workers at risk of mass displacement due to automation by the year 2041. As factories install automated cutting and sewing machines to stay competitive, the uneducated manual workforce, particularly the women in helper roles, are going to be the very first to lose their livelihoods. Section 4. Pillars of a Just Transition. So, how on earth do you automate an industry that employs 4 million people without causing a total, catastrophic social collapse? Well, you need a framework. A just transition means carefully calibrating this shift toward automation so that human workers aren't just discarded. The architectural foundation for this requires 3 equally strong pillars, kind of like a stool. If any of these pillars fail, the whole transition from labor-intensive to technology-intensive manufacturing collapses entirely. Let's walk through these. Pillar 1 is social equity and safety nets, meaning implementing unemployment insurance and industry-led pension protections, so displaced workers don't fall straight into poverty. Pillar 2 is reskilling and upskilling, bridging that 60% competency gap with hands-on machine training so workers can actually maintain the new tech. And Pillar 3, this is crucial, is gender equality. Currently, high-value tech roles are predominantly male-dominated. The blueprint pushes for a strict target of 50% female management by 2030 to reverse this trend and protect women from disproportionate displacement. Section 5. The RMG 2035 Survival Blueprint. We know the strengths, the weaknesses, the threats, and the framework. So here's the actual multi-phase action plan to navigate this all the way through to 2035. And it's important to understand, this isn't just a wish list. It's a deeply structured sequence where each phase relies entirely on the success of the one before it. The first 0 to 3 years focus entirely on stabilization and skilling, aligning with U.S. trade treaties today and tackling digital literacy. The 3 to 6 year phase focuses on systems integration, breaking the dependency on foreign tech by building local hubs and integrating IoT in smaller factories. And finally, the 6 to 10 year phase targets sustainable innovation, achieving full smart factory status with AI integration and hitting net zero carbon benchmarks.
So what are the specific tactics making this happen? I absolutely love this first one, gamified digital literacy. Before workers even touch a complex $8 million automated machine, they play mobile mini-games on their phones to learn the digital interfaces. It brilliantly solves a high-tech problem with an accessible low-tech solution. Other tactics include low-interest financing to get smaller factories onto IoT tracking systems, and shifting the entire export portfolio away from basic cotton toward high-value man-made fibers. It is a total top-to-bottom reinvention of the supply chain.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful summary quote straight from the analysis. The future of the Made in Bangladesh brand will not be won through low-cost labor, but through high-value, tech-integrated, and ethical manufacturing. That perfectly encapsulates everything we've explored today. The days of relying solely on sheer volume and cheap wages, those days are effectively over. The premium competitiveness of the future is going to require smart tech, resilience, and above all, the sustainable treatment of the workforce.
So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. As we move toward 2035, will the Made in Bangladesh brand sitting in your closet right now be defined by the low-cost labor of the past or the high-value, ethical tech of the future? The blueprint is written, but the execution is what will determine the fate of millions. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you on the next one.